Okay, the next topic on our list is this very topic that's very close to our hearts, which is head versus heart. Now, when it comes to head versus heart, it's I feel like it stems all the way back to childhood, where as women we tend to have more emotions and feelings, but a lot of time growing up as a kid, we are told to ignore our feelings, or we are told not to cry, for example, or that it's not a big deal, and then we are supposed to be rational and think and use our head and kind of just ignore that hard part. But I think as a mom, we love our children, we love our family tremendously, and it's impossible for us to not feel anything, right? But at the same time, we also want to make sure we balance being rational, being having that mental clarity, and not just go over the bar with being overly emotional. This comes up especially for me at one point when I had to decide if I want to sleep train my baby or not. And I remember having this conversation with Christy about I don't know what to do, because everybody says sleep training is good for your child in one way or another. But the process of sleep training your child is to let your baby cry for as long as it takes until they fall asleep. And that is heartbreaking for a new mom to watch your baby cry and asking for mommy. And then you just have to be firm and stand away at a distance and just watch them cry until they fall asleep. And eventually this sleep training thing, it works. But I mean, it's still, he still wakes up in the middle of the night from time to time and asking for mommy. But this was especially hard for me when I had that inclination to, want to go and soothe my child and want to be there for my child, tell him it's okay. And it seems like such a mean thing to do for me at the beginning. But at the same time, my head is telling me that it's okay, it's a phase, it's required. And it was so hard for me to go through at the time. And I believe, Christy, for you, Helena is a big girl now, coming to 12. I'm sure you have tons of experiences and examples of when you have to choose between head versus heart. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, and I had the same experience with sleep training. It was really fashionable when Helena was young. There was a woman called Gina Ford that was really big in the UK at the time, and everyone was doing this Gina Ford method, which is really harsh and extremely structured, and a lot of parents swore by it. But looking back, I wish that I had worried less about following other people's methodologies and theories and just listened more inwardly. But I think when you're a young first-time mom, you don't have the confidence always. But I wish I had just been a little bit more listening to my heart with this stuff. I don't know if you can hear. Anyway,
for me, Ellie in the background.
She's on one of her school calls. It's very lively. When we took a couple of months break after we'd been living in the Middle East, we went to Costa Rica and we lived with a nana, like an old lady, while we were going to a Spanish school, and she would babysit for us. But she's like, so my husband and I could go out sometimes, but she's like, but your daughter, she's to sleep in the bed with me. Like, that's how we do it, And in many other cultures, this idea, I often think about how we go to bed together at night, but our daughter's in a completely different room, and it's normal, right, for them to be so physically separated from you. But when we know how good it feels to hug, so just even with that stuff, I still question it. But in our culture, it's normal to have that whole separation. And I don't know, it doesn't always feel right to me. On head versus heart in general, I think it's all the yin and the yang, and it is essential, I think, to get in tune with being able to observe where you're at and try to keep somewhat in the middle, be able to do a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but keep yourself somewhat centered, because I think when we're too far in one direction or too far in the other, that's when we have problems. But I do think it's important to value both equally. And especially in the corporate environment that I was in, which was very, very conservative, I was in for a long time, there was no room for any emotion. It was just not allowed. And I think that's very unhealthy. But yes, I think this whole left brain, right brain, head, heart, yin yang, light, dark, it all has a place. It's of equal importance. Our job is to find our equilibrium in the middle somewhere. And the better we get at observing ourselves sort of objectively, the easier that becomes.
One very essential defining motivator for me is to always trust my intuition.
Yeah.
Because sometimes logically it makes sense and it's just me having all the feels. But at the same time, sometimes if I feel very strongly about certain things, then I believe it's good for me to listen to what my heart is telling me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, especially this comes up for when we have that mom guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we got to pull a little bit more on logic in those moments, I feel.
Yeah, and then what's going on in our heart and in our head? It's like, I'm not doing enough, or is this good for my child, or and then it is just all sorts of guilt. But it is a very sensitive topic and not something that a lot of times we talk about. I mean, even in Lifebook, it is a balancing act to know what's good for you in your head versus deciding how you feel about it. So let us know. This is a very interesting topic that I really love to hear from all you ladies. Like, what do you see? Where do you see yourself when it comes to your head space versus your heart space? So let us know in the chat.